Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by CoolStuffing.com, mana traders, as well as Twitch subscribers and Patreon supporters just like yourself. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, MTG Nerd Girl.
Hey guys, welcome back.
Ruben Bressler.
Hey, happy Tuesday. Thanks
Happy
everybody for showing
Valentine's.
up. Yeah.
Valentine's
Right.
even, y'all. This is a special Valentine's Day show, pre-Magic
That's
Con
right.
Philly. We want to get in there. Last
And
Thursday, I was very ill. I do apologize for that.
And when you think Valentine's Day, you really do think Magic Mics.
Isn't there a new Magic Mike's movie in theaters?
Oh, you're right. Oh, you know what?
Is it in
I was
theaters?
kidding, but you're kind of right. There is a new Magic Mics movie, isn't there?
Just saying. Now, that said, if you
Magic.
did miss our pre-show, patrons and subs to this channel get access to our NSFW version early, and we kick it off with our first pick in our
Yes.
giveaway. Get your chance at $50 worth of anything at CoolStuffing.com by typing !raffle in the chat. But sub first to get 2 chances to win and support your favorite streamer with your suggestions at the end of the show to see who we raid tonight. Thanks to our sponsor, CoolStuffing.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every single freaking day. There was a first pick this week. A little tough, I'll be honest. It's a little slow as things, we're kind of waiting to ramp into March of the Machine because that's our lives now, is we're waiting for the next spoiler season to start.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah, now that we don't have a spoiler season to fill our days with,
What are we supposed
we're
to
lost.
talk about? This is crazy. Well, things are changing for March of the Machine. Now, as the past, gosh, goodness, 6 years now or so, 7 almost, have shown us, where, things have gotten a little wild and crazy. There's set boosters, there's collector boosters, secret lairs have gone completely nuts, and so on. One of the things that has remained the same, more or less, has been the draft booster. The draft boosters have been the same makeup, the same, number of rares, uncommons, and commons, and so on, for pretty much a good 20 plus years, ever since they stopped doing smaller packs from back in the day. And as of March of the Machine, that's changing. All draft boosters for it will contain 1 rare or mythic rare, 1 to 2 cards, 3 to 5 uncommons, and 8 to 9 commons. And so I don't even really know how to I don't know. Like I think part of the way you would explain it is you say, look, we've already had the bonus sheets, right, for Bro and other sets, and those have added like extra rares, right, more or less into the packs, and that didn't really change much. But this time they're really upfront and saying, look, you just might get 1 to 2 rares, deal with it. Is that basically where we're looking at here?
I mean, at that point, I don't understand what the difference is between a set booster and a draft booster, because set boosters don't always have more than 1 rare, but you can, right? So it's a similar idea, and the ratio seems roughly the same. Maybe it fluctuates how often that happens. Maybe set boosters are a lot more, but at that point, can't we just go down to one type of pack now?
Set boosters don't have, like, for example, I think some of the commons may not be in all the set boosters, or they're rarely, like, remember they group them in weird different ways or whatever in terms of the way that they're in the
I think they
booster.
also add some of the commander cards.
Plus the set list, so plus the list adds cards in 1 in every 4 boosters, which is a little weird. But to get 8 to 9 commons, 3 to 5 uncommons, and to know how important signpost uncommons are, to get extras in all of your drafts seems pretty important.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that maybe they'll fluctuate with how many of those are available.
Mm-hmm. Maybe, right? And how many they design in the set. Again, this isn't the most burning topic in the world. Just kind of chose one to be our first pick. I did think it was really interesting because, when you're going to have these little moments where things change, if nothing else, you can say we've had, the Bro extra cards and the Strixhaven Mystical Archive and stuff, but they have never messed with the 3 uncommons in a pack. Like, that's been a pretty solid. I can bank on 3 uncommons in my draft booster since, like, how long?
I don't know that it's changed since I started playing Magic in 1999, that you didn't have 1 rare and 3 uncommons. Now, they did change the number of commons at one point.
Yeah.
They did change that you got a basic in the packs. They added a token or a how to play card.
Right.
But to my memory, and correct me if I'm wrong, chat. I don't recall a change to the booster pack system where there was, other than when they added the mythic rarity, right? And there was, instead of just being a rare, it's either a rare or a mythic. They didn't change the number. They didn't mess with any of that for regular standard legal sets. So huge seed change, and I'm worried about it. But you know, I mean,
We
I
all
think that
are as Magic players.
we're all worried. We're all worried about it. But we've also been worried about the future of booster packs anyway, especially on this show. So
I'm actually kind of surprisingly on board for an increase in uncommons, because that's the kind of limited I like to play. I like to have decks that synergize well with my signpost uncommons. They're not unbeatable, and they're what I find fun to play. I am sad that there's more rares, and those rares are getting bombier and bombier as we go. So that will just make the format much swingier and much less games of Magic decided by like long drawn out gameplay and more just like who finds their bomb first. That's what I don't like about limited Magic this way. So obviously we have no say. So it's happening. We will embrace it. I'm excited to have, 2 to 3 signpost uncommons in my deck. That's good Magic.
Yeah, I think there's no greater paradox as a Magic player in that any change generally scares the hell out of us. But if the game doesn't keep changing, we're not going to be here for the rest of the game releases, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, it isn't going to keep us around. Which is, that's being a Magic player.
I mean, it is hard to overstate how different Magic is and how big of changes have happened to Magic in the last 2 years. Than I think there have been more big changes to Magic since the pandemic than any individual length of time of that length before the pandemic. And it makes me worried for the future. I think that there's been a lot of like things that we've taken for granted in Magic the Gathering that have changed since the end of the pandemic, on all scales, from how the booster packs are made. But that's just the latest example of like corporate tie-ins, the competitive scene, advertising, Hasbro's involvement in everything. And this is another one. And so when I look at the big picture of Magic, I am afraid, I am a little bit scared that they are no longer following what I consider to be what they were, the roadmap that made them successful for 20 years, 25 years. They are deviating from that plan much more, in my opinion, in the last year and a half than previous.
I think what you could put it as is that, and I think if you look back, Wizards got a little boring there for a minute. Like in the early 2010s, maybe all the way up through Big Salon or so, there was some pretty snoozy, not a lot was changing, not a lot was different, and I think they might have went too far in the world of secret layers plus set plus collectors plus, Magic 30, whatever. But, I do think there's a medium there where we can meet in that. I think it was a cool idea to make a bunch of different versions of stuff that people do like to, make their decks their own and shiny and neat. And as we've seen at Cool Stuff, we sell the normal versions of cards 2-to-1 over variants. So like, because people just want their cards most of the time. Most Magic players just give me the piece of cardboard that says what I want it to do, and we move on. I don't care what it looks like. We bring those cards. Those cards we can't really list online. We bring big boxes of them to the conventions, and then they sell like crazy. Because most Magic players don't give a damn if it's chewed to crap as long as it works in a sleeve, right? Let's just move on. So we'll see.
For the most part, yeah.
Speaking of being upset about the cost of Magic cards, there was another BusinessInsider.com article that came out where Hasbro, quote, continues to destroy customer goodwill, unquote, and the stock could crash 29% as it dilutes the value of Magic, Bank of America says. They reiterated its underperforming rating, on the Hasbro stock, and quote, within its Wizards segment, Hasbro continues to destroy customer goodwill by trying to over-monetize its brands. And I don't know exactly how far this goes into something people with a lot of money want to do something with Hasbro and stocks and takeovers, but I do know the one debacle after another has done nothing good for Wizards. And when we did get the fireside chat, it basically hinted at the upcoming OGL changes, which, just went from bad to worse. And clearly, even the business world can't deny that it's hurt.
Yeah, I mean, product fatigue is a thing we've been talking about, and I'm definitely a lot less interested in buying Magic product in general, just because there's so much of it. And there's also this issue now where it's like everything is special, so nothing kind of is anymore.
Mhm.
And that makes, 17 types of, Elish Norn, but they're all like, Elish Norn's maybe the exception. But for the most part, like I opened this Jace, the foil Phyrexian one, and it's worth $1.50 more than the regular. And I was like, oh, okay, this is $7 versus $6. And this is written in Phyrexian. Like, that's supposed to be the coolest thing there is. But the thing is, there's 30,000 different versions. And it's just not anymore.
Yeah, I think that there is some amount of confusion in addition to some amount of being jaded with all of the extra bonus copies and stuff. I think that I like it for Elish Norn and I like it for the big name cards, but you're right. When you've got 4 copies of every common and every rare and every card has all these. I don't know if you've seen the foils that look like it's like gift wrapping paper foil for New Phyrexia.
Yeah,
have you seen these?
The step incomplete. Yeah.
Yeah, which is cool. It's a cool foiling process, but it's like, do we need it? I don't know.
I do think it's really cool. I got like this camera might not do it, but
there we go. Thrun.
Yeah,
you can't really see it actually.
I mean,
camera doesn't pick it up.
That foil's really nice. I mean,
the other thing is
super shiny.
They've also trashed their reputation with foils. Like secret lairs are unplayable half the time. Anything foil from Brothers War, unplayable. They just came out pringled. Thankfully, I opened this collector booster box of one, and everything is pretty crispy. It's nice. But for multiple sets there, including all the promo, like Vault type sets and collector boosters, they were all just absolutely unplayable. I don't understand.
And for what it's worth, that also was a narrative back in from the Vault days that everything came out super pringled and unusable. So, like, certainly it's been a thing that's plagued Wizards for a very long time for a variety of reasons. And of course, it was always better back in the day, even though it wasn't always better back in the day. But sure.
Did you guys see the meme? Someone taped their cards together, and it only took 9 cards to make a complete circle.
I didn't see that one, but
I hate that. I did not see that.
I mean, I guess one of the things this article predicates on particularly is that Hasbro has over monetized Magic the Gathering. I don't know if that's true, because it does this weird like cards are too cheap argument. But if cards are too cheap, then that's bad. But if cards are worth too much, that's also bad because then people can't get them or whatever. This is all that thinking back in the day where like I want fetch lands to be X dollars, not Y dollars. Why can't they just be X dollars? This piece of cardboard needs to be $50, not $20, because reasons, right? It's a little weird. That's why this whole article just strikes me as odd. And I think right now Hasbro is just scared to death that the Dungeons and Dragons movie is going to do poorly, and I think heads might actually roll. Very public figureheads might roll if that movie tanks.
I mean, I think that is true. I don't know that is connected in any meaningful way to Magic.
Well, it wraps into the D&D part of it, right? Like this is
Sure.
Yeah.
this is combining both Magic problems and D&D problems have combined to
Yeah.
Hasbro's problems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it combines in the fact that some of the people who are making the decisions that we are talking about and we are unhappy about are these same people or
Sure.
working under the same umbrella of they're making decisions for X reason. And it's all
That's
just
fair.
coming crashing down. I'm not too worried about the D&D thing, especially from the Magic side. It's got a killer cast, right? Like an actual star cast.
Yeah.
It looked funny and
It looked fun.
entertaining.
It
The
looks
only thing
good.
I would be concerned about is just the people from the D&D debacle that we just had, whatever it was, not OP, but
OGL.
The OGL.
OGL.
Yeah.
Thank
Yep.
you. That might hurt it.
I
think.
agree. I think that there is some amount of bad will within the D&D community, but I don't know that how wide. Well, first of all, what percentage of the people that see the Dungeons and Dragons movie are Dungeons and Dragons players that affect the bottom line of Wizards of the Coast? I don't know that it's that big. I could be mistaken. I often am. However, I don't think that Wizards hopes that the bulk of the people spending money to go see the D&D movie are native D&D fans. I think that would be a disaster. Now, the movie looks good, in my opinion. I mean, how do you not love Chris Pine as a bard? I think it's going to be a good movie. And a bunch of the changes that, the grognards and the old school D&D players are like, the druid shouldn't be able to turn into an owlbear. Okay, guy, it's like, calm down.
My
Or like
D&D game
the
is not being
tiefling
played
should be
well.
more purple. All right, like, it's a movie. Let's figure stuff out. So I am optimistic about the D&D movie. For me, this still continues to speak to this wider array of, when you're watching a season of like House MD, each individual episode has its own problems, but then there's an overarching plot of plot problems. And every time I hear about a Magic problem, it's like, yeah, that it has a thing and then it can be solved, but it also speaks to this background issue. Like there's a bit of a white noise in the background where everything is sort of coming at this angle of it's different than it's always been. They are no longer leaning on on the folk tradition of Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons and the community goodwill that Wizards of the Coast used to have, and they keep trying to change direction, and every time they do, they keep losing. So that's why every time I hear these, I'm like, that issue itself doesn't sound terrible, but we always have this lurking background issue.
Before we move on, I just want to say I have high hopes for the D&D movie, and I know I will like it because I liked the first one, and I know nobody else did, but I was fine. I'm pretty sure
blue
I
lipstick.
still own it on like DVD or VHS, probably in a box somewhere.
They made 2 sequels, right?
What?
Yeah. They are also not great. The original was fun. The original was super fun.
The original was Jeremy Irons has a mortgage, and
That's right.
it needed to be paid. All right, it bought him a very
I
nice
thought
house.
it was fine.
It was fine. It was exactly fine.
When I was a kid, I thought it was good. So meh.
Yes.
Me. Well, moving on here to roll back around just a minute. We want to discuss and thank our sponsor, our secondary sponsor here, which is Mana Traders, new to the show. Go check out manatraders.com. The best tool to enhance your Magic Online experience. Use the code MAGICMIKES for 12% off your next subscription with Mana Traders. Be able to play Legacy, play Vintage, play the coolest decks right now. Play whatever you want. Give the cards back. Go rent some different ones. All you would like. Certainly at very affordable rates. And hey, 12% is no joke. That's a lot of percentage. So use code MAGICMIKES. Tell them we sent you. Mana Traders, thank you so much for sponsoring the show. We really appreciate it. Now, next I want to cover this. Look. Wizards announced a new secret lair. Sure, it's like a newborn baby. It happens every day. But they announced a secret lair which had just a little tiny little swirl of a pin stroke, which may or may not be Oh God, a wiener! Don't be
Right.
a wiener!
I
And
did forget
everyone
that.
lost their minds. We're all
What?
12 years old.
How did I
Like,
see that?
this whole thing, I got it up on the screen now so you can
Oh, I
see
did
it.
see that.
Yeah, this was just a little silly. And, like, honest to God, I think if they just let this blow over as something silly and it's a tiny little bit in the background, who cares? Whatever. The next day, they immediately deleted it and said that they hadn't reviewed it or something or other, whatever. Which sounds like total BS. It just got through and no one noticed. Okay, whatever. But again, these weird, like, moralistic, like, hills to die on, just kind of destroy my soul.
I mean, I don't agree. I
Agree with what?
that this is like borderline fine.
It's fine.
Because I mean, Dana was playing this before she could read, and I don't think that that should be in the art that Dana's playing with.
I mean, I don't want giant floppy whatever's going on, but at the same time, a background.
But where do you
image
draw
of a
the line?
thing-
If you accept this, then you've got something a little floppier next time, and then this person's like, "Oh, well, why is my art not okay, but this one is?"
Why is
even though-
that floppy?
The
not
issue is
floppy?
drawing lines to begin with. No, I'm kidding.
And I think the
Um,
line should be at, "We don't want pornography and magic."
Yeah,
This
I
is a
agree.
card game.
But also, I looked at the art, the unedited art of this, and I didn't see it really. It was so the art is for a stone coil serpent,
Yeah.
and this is like a complete like amalgamation, sort of like diorama of a bunch of stuff, and I thought that it was a doll on a pike. The fact that it was a real person, quote unquote, of an art of a real person, was surprising to me. So I was not outraged either way. I was just, oh, that's a thing that exists. So I agree with that it probably shouldn't have been on there in the first place. The fact that it got past the editors, that's a little much.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's whatever. But it's just kind of wild and weird and certainly new. We hadn't had this issue in a I can't even remember one if we've had this issue, but it was odd. And speaking of LoveSacs,
Oh my God, Evan.
has a little promo going here with LoveSac, which is apparently they make like beanbag chairs or
Yeah.
whatever.
They're nice and comfy. I've
They
heard
are
about them since I
very
was a
comfy.
kid.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
When I was a
Cool.
kid, I always thought this was like the nicest thing you can own as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Well,
I've had friends that have owned LoveSacs, and they are extremely comfortable to lounge in, nap in.
We
watch
are not
TV
sponsored.
in.
Please send us some.
Oh
Thank
yeah,
you.
sure.
I would be happy to discuss how much I enjoy the LoveSac, but right now, what they have on their website, and this is kind of blowing my mind. So they say here, the movie sack bundle includes a limited edition cover and Magic the Gathering Phyrexia all will be one set booster box. So, are you telling me that the sack bundle with the insert or the cover, you want to pay $400 for a cover?
Yeah,
I don't get it. What is they selling here exactly?
it's
I think the
cover.
thing is, so yeah, it's sort of like when you have a couch and you buy different couch covers. So I think you own the LoveSac and you can buy various coverings, or you can just buy it as a whole chair.
Oh, so you got to spend $1,000 to basically get the Magic the Gathering
Yeah,
sack.
Cover.
whole shebang.
The whole
and then
shebang.
let's say Magic the Gathering or Batman does a collab with them next time. You have the chair. You just buy the $400 cover from here on out.
Is that cover worth $400?
I mean, it's a lot of cloth, and it's high quality cloth. Like, how much are you going to spend on bedding for your bed or a new, cover for your couch? It's the same kind of deal. I understand that you're going to bristle and scoff at a bag that goes over your beanbag chair.
Yeah.
But I mean, considering the fact that it's already an expensive beanbag chair, right? Like,
When I was a kid, these were $500. Like when
Yeah.
I was like 12. So this is not an outrageous price for LoveSac. This has always been the thing.
right. Now, with that said, it's an outrageous price.
Oh yeah,
Overall.
absolutely.
I mean,
But, like,
you get a
But
set
we're not
booster
looking at the new
box.
Porsche and being
Right,
like, what the heck is
exactly.
this?
Sure, I get it. This is for a socioeconomic status that isn't a guy who raised 5 kids. It's,
Right.
So if you
Evan,
happen to have,
as Magic has been very fond of telling us, not every product is for you.
you know,
Maybe this $400 beanbag chair cover isn't for you.
maybe $1,000
Poor man.
to sit your beanbag butt on the LoveSac, where you sleeve your sack up. Well, maybe it's not your bag, as it were. So,
Not your bag.
yeah,
that was really good. That was really good.
As
Well
we
done.
move on to Desperate Ravings. Very nice. Now, this was a silly little question I thought was interesting. Someone had asked Mark Rosewater, what is the current starter product for paper Magic? And there have been new player sets, there have been intro decks, there have been promo packs for new players, there is now Jumpstart, Set Jumpstart, and there is still a sort of an arena starter kit. And once upon a time, and I recall this because I saw this, the starter, the 2-player like learn how to play kit would have instructions. The decks would be specifically built in a certain way so that you would draw your 7 cards and they would know what your 7 are, and it would go through the first like 5 or 6 turns of the game, literally completely scripted to show you like how the ebb and flow of things happen in a Magic game. These days, as I understand it, that's not the case. And one of the things Rosewater notes here is just like, they spent almost 30 years trying to make a product where people can teach themselves. It seems really, really difficult. You're pretty much going to learn through a video or your friend or arena and or Magic Online's tutorials. I'm not sure what the state of those are these days, but is that kind of where we're at? Is there any possible product paper thing that can get you into Magic by itself?
I mean, as far as learning goes, I would say there's a really good rule book in the Friday Night Magic kit that comes with 5 decks. Those cards are also those decks are pretty like reasonable, like Shivan Dragon-esque type cards. Very low commitment there, and I also think it's like pretty reasonably priced. You get 5 decks, I believe, for like $39.99.
Yeah,
and you get 5% off if you use code Magic Mike's. Cool stuff. I think that's where it is. And financially speaking, I've had this conversation a lot with my community is, when I started, I bought a standard pre-con, and that's how I got into Magic. And then I would upgrade it with the packs as I bought them. And that was something a kid could do. That starter deck, if I remember correctly, was $14.99, which, was not a lot. Or it was not a lot, but still a lot for a kid.
For a kid, yeah, that was a thing.
The closest equivalent we can come up to now to actually be able to play Magic for a kid starting out, just getting dropped off at the store, is a commander deck. And asking your mom for $50+ is a lot. There's no real way for kids to get into Magic unless their parents have a lot of expendable money and they're willing to give it to their children, or unless their parents are already involved in the community.
Yeah, I agree. The barrier for entry in Magic is and kind of always has been very high.
But it was possible before.
It was possible before. And it's unfortunate that the way to get into Magic is to have a neighbor that is quitting Magic, right? Like that's kind of how you get into Magic as a kid now, is you get lucky and are bestowed with a 5-row, $10K box or something. That sucks. I will say that another thing that I think that Magic could do, and I don't know that they're going to, a friend of mine is a teacher in Ohio, and his kids wanted to start a Magic club, and he was able to help start that Magic club with Jumpstart. Jumpstart packs or boxes, I don't know what they're officially called. I think they're packs. Yeah. Are pretty cheap, comparatively speaking. Certainly compared to a commander deck.
Right, they're $5 or $6. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is a great way to get introduced to Magic. I think that would be my preference for the future of something that is a tournament pack like experience.
Well, they and do note that there's Jumpstart 2022, and then there's set-based Jumpstart, which is by the set, and they have their own little custom rares, and there's only like 5 or 6 different packs in it, and that's arguably a good one because they're so cheap, is the set-based stuff. And there are starter commander decks, thanks Pharmacist Judge for noting that, which do now exist for about $20 or so, but I think the other part you have to remember is that, okay, so like mom can have $20 for a deck. Well, I also need like $8 or $9 for sleeves, and I also need like, $2 or $3 at least for a deck box. And hey, I kind of need some dice to keep track of the so and so's or my tokens, and yada 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 yada. So it doesn't always kind of end at those things, and honestly,
Sure.
that's kind of how the industry works. But it's really just that. Our game isn't necessarily cheap to get into, but what is the best intro to Magic? It's just knowing somebody who plays Magic or knowing enough
Yeah.
about it to go find a digital client. Like, that's just kind of a thing. And I think when Wizards realize that Commander players teach other players Commander, you know what I mean? Like, that's how that works.
That's actually what I was going to say, is if you do want to get into Commander, or you know someone who does and you can't teach them, or whatever, or you're not local to them, I think the best thing to do is just find out when the local Commander night is, send them there, and then they just say, hey, I'm interested, but I don't have a deck. Boom, you'll have 15 decks and 7 games just waiting for you at most of these conventions and events.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that does not read as a great barrier line for somebody who grows up in Billings, Montana, or in some other unreached, like Russia, right? Like, I know that a lot of the like Magic Online success stories, people like Budakov, played Magic Online because they're so far away from everybody. Is there a way to learn Magic with Magic cards without having a lifeline in the community already? That's tough, and I don't think there is one. I think Jumpstart could be that. I don't think there is one right now, like you're describing from your childhood, nerd girl.
Yeah, I think, and honestly, if you look at some other games, I mean, it's pretty hard to get into, chess. I watched a video on how to play backgammon. You know how stupidly weird backgammon is, and has some really weird rules, and you do
Sure.
a thing, you got to roll some dice and put the things on the stuff in the middle, and
But
there's a whole
the
different
reason
thing.
but the reason why games like chess and backgammon and soccer are so popular over the world is because all you need is a ball, right? All you need is the board and some pieces, and you don't even need to buy those.
Right.
This is another reason why role-playing games took off, is you don't really need a rule book. All you need is a randomization device of any kind and a storytelling brain. And so, this is why soccer is a lot more popular worldwide than a sport like football, where you need a lot more pieces and a lot more things. Magic needs a lot of pieces and needs a lot of things, and also has a very comprehensive, difficult rule system that can't, even if you had the rule book, you can't just crack it open and learn how to play Magic.
So, moving on here to a Twitter comment by Jim Davis, which I thought was worth noting, and I thought it was like, could we help out a little bit here? I actually went back and looked just now on Wikipedia. The last time we had an actual factual Pro Tour, like an actual Pro Tour blank, was Pro Tour Guilds of Ravnica. This is before it became Mythic Championships and whatever else random stuff. So we're having an actual factual Pro Tour for the first time in like almost 5 years or so, something like that. And the best we have is a little tiny bop at the bottom of the experience listing of stuff. And like, there's the top corners of this image, the top left, top right corners could have been like, check out the return of the Pro Tour, blah, blah, twitch.tv/magic, with some dates. Or the very bottom of it, at the very bottom, on the poster itself, you could have a little something that says, blah, 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 Pro Tour Phil, coming back, blah, 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 But there's not a lot of pomp and circumstance built around the Pro Tour right now, when it should be, at least arguably, a pretty large part of the experience of going to MagicCon Philly this weekend.
Yeah, it does feel weird. It feels odd, but I'm not surprised. This is another one that, like, if you had told me that they weren't going to be advertising the Pro Tour, I would have been like, yeah, of course they aren't. Like, that doesn't matter to Magic anymore. It sucks, but this is Magic now.
Ugh, it doesn't matter to Magic now. That just breaks my heart and Dude.
I agree. I am not surprised. I mean, it was there before. They had the big Magic event at Magic 30, and it was, they didn't put seats in front of the event, right? They only put seats in front of the Command Zone Live. But then also there were places for people to stand and go kind of watch it a bit. If it had been overly crowded, I think they probably would have pushed people away, but it wasn't even remotely close.
Yeah.
So there was very little interest in it, to be honest. The, side events, the limited was very, very hot. A lot of people played Commander and they just wanted to play Commander and they wanted to see Jimmy and Josh. So while us old birds are sad to see the change, I think that the community as a whole has kind of deemed that that's where Magic is heading, and Wizards is doing exactly what is getting traction.
Yeah. Now, what is the format for this Pro Tour? And by that, I mean, is this an arena event? Is it a paper event, or is it a mixed event?
It's paper.
It is a paper event.
100% paper. This is also another big point for the event, is that it is the return to paper. 100% paper end to end, from what I understand.
So a high-level paper Magic tournament is going to read better live than it is than the one that was in Vegas. I was there in Vegas trying to watch some of the event, and you couldn't. Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of monitors, but it was like shoved off in a corner. There wasn't a ton of space to stand. You couldn't hear any of the commentary. It was not well built for live spectation. Not that a live Pro Tour is good for live spectation, but at least there will be tables upon tables of 100 or more, maybe a couple hundred pros, we'll call them, playing the highest competitive level of Magic, and that is going to drive interest in the same way that at a casino you put the poker room at the front of the casino to drive interest. Oh, I see them doing a thing, time to walk in. That's the vibe of it. And maybe if there is expressed additional interest in live high level tournament Magic in Philly at the event, then perhaps that could signal to the higher ups, oh, this is something that people expressed interest in, that people want to see more of. I think that that's the way that we'll see the return of what we think of as the pro scene. But for this event, not surprised.
It's going to take when you've let something kind of wither on the vine, and you've seen how you could arguably amateur pro-am, whatever you want to call it, sort of the SCG way of how they built up storylines and stars, which you describe, I think you could call it the Kevin Jones effect. Which you can take basically any Magic player, that if you give people enough reason to care about them and get them into their story and talk about them and showcase them and let people see them in action, that you can build on those storylines and make those things happen. And if you are at this point completely against doing that or trying to build those storylines, you're never going to get the excitement that is going to justify the investment. Does that make sense? You almost have a horse and carriage problem here, where you need to build the storylines and excitement, but people aren't going to care if you don't build the storylines and excitement.
Right.
But people aren't caring, therefore you don't want to build the storylines and excitement. You know what I mean? You don't invest.
Yeah. This does still also read to me as a left-hand, right-hand issue, where the people organizing the tournament clearly don't care as much about the sport, the gladiatorial combat of Magic, as the people who play Magic. So I think that these are opportunities to express that opinion. If you're going to the event, or if you're offered the chance to respond to a what are they called? Survey. That's the word.
There you go.
Express your opinion and speak with things that they'll actually listen to, instead of doing what we do and complaining on the internet. Because they aren't going to look at Twitter responses.
I mean,
they would if it was large enough, but regardless.
Real quick, I just want to say I want the coverage. I'm pro competitive, but I wanted to touch briefly on what Evan said about the cart and the horse, and you have to build it up to get people to care, and people aren't going to care unless you build it up, so you're not going to build it up because nobody cares. I don't think that's the issue. The issue is that you didn't have to build up the game nights live. You just
Yeah.
do
You
it
just did
and the
it.
people care. So the issue is that why go through all of the work to make people care when we do not have to, and they'll just care about this other thing naturally. So it's like, is the juice worth the squeeze? And so I don't think it's an issue of like them not wanting to put the work in to make people care. I think the issue is that they just don't need to, because the community as a whole cares very much about this other thing, and that's the easy route.
Well, to
It's
touch
also,
base, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's also very difficult to hype a paper pro tour based on how much energy they put into competitive arena at the start, even if they're not pumping that anymore. The energy behind arena makes making paper Magic live events harder.
Oh yeah, it never got sort of easier, as it were. And again, now that you have a thing, but wanted to bring this up really quickly. In the 800,000 subscriber, first of all, congratulations to Clarion Community College. Y'all are crushing it, killing it, way to go. You certainly deserve it.
Congrats, prof.
It's that he said, you know, one of his hot takes was Commander won't last long term for Magic. Like Commander will eventually not make it, you know what I mean? Not be the number one thing forever and ever. And I'm not sure if I believe that per se, but at this point, I'm not sure high level, you know what I mean? Like Johnny Magic style players, regardless of how good they are at Magic, are going to bring people back into a competitive fold either. Maybe it'll just be a different kind of casual.
Yeah. It really, it's tough to predict, because when you look at what things last the longest as it pertains to games, traditionally it is the high level play. There is no league of sports higher in the world than the highest level of sports, right? The Major League Baseball, the Premier League, like the highest level leagues are older than the sub leagues.
Sure.
But on the flip side of that, you have games, traditional games like Monopoly.
Right, like there's a Monopoly World Championships, there's a Scrabble World Championships.
But the Monopoly and Scrabble World Championships are not nearly as old or as storied as competitive games. And right there in the middle, you have chess. And Magic is very similar to chess, and high-level chess is always a thing that people are interested in, and it's debatable how much money it will bring in or how popular in popular culture it is. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. When you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
Right.
So when you ask me, I think competitive Magic is going to outlast Commander.
Nerd Girl, thoughts?
I mean, it's tough because I'm kind of on the other side of the fence in that I'm a competitive player and I want competitive Magic to be those things. But I see Commander doing something for the community that competitive never did. And I think that is the direction Magic is moving in. And even though I prefer the competitive, I think it is good for Magic, and I think it will last.
I think I would end with competitive. It's exciting to see anyone do something that you think is cool or interesting, do it the best in the world.
Yeah.
I like to watch Counter-Strike and stuff, whatever. Like, you know, if I want to watch a Marvel Snap competitive player, I want to watch the best. You know what I'm saying? I want to see what they do that's different from me. And whether it's soccer or baseball or whatever. And so it's weird to me, not only just sort of growing up, obviously, with a very competitive oriented, play system as they created it back in the day, but to say it's not worth investing time, money, and resources from Wizards to find and showcase the best players in the world. And in order to do that, in order to make people care on the other side of that, yes, they're really good. You also have to give them something to latch onto, which are, stories, like interviews, star building type things where you're able to kind of make these people seem larger than life. Do you know, like, how monolithic, John Finkel was back in the day, like Kai, like they were just like on the Mount Rushmore of competitive Magic. They were the German juggernaut, right?
Yeah.
Like that mattered.
But for a small group of people, I think you and I and Evan and most of our audience are the people who want to see that sort of high level Magic gameplay. But I don't think that's the norm. There's a reason why things like game nights is the #1 performing Magic show, because we want to see that high level stuff, but most of the community doesn't. So
Sure.
I think you're looking at it from your perspective where that's the things you want to see, but the numbers are not showing that.
Yeah.
The most successful content creators, the most successful shows are not about top level Magic gameplay. It's about fun and community and recreating things that they can do at home with their friends that they will enjoy. And that's where the numbers are.
I agree. But I also think that there's room for both. You know, I think that games go through evolutions where, you know, right now the most popular Magic channel is the Professor. You know, the most popular Twitch category. Let's go with Twitch, right? Right now, I would imagine that a competitive game, either a first-person shooter or a MOBA or, you know, like League of Legends, right? Like those streams are usually at the top. However, we also had a whole year where Among Us was the most popular thing. We've also had moments where Overwatch was the thing, and then we've had Valorant, and now everyone is either streaming or purposefully not streaming the Nazi wizard game. We'll leave it at that. But what I'm saying is that it ebbs and flows, and I think that it can, even within Magic, it can ebb and flow. I think there's room for both. You know,
There is, but we're talking about Wizards allocating its time and effort.
For sure.
So why would it make, like, we have to put effort into making people care about this thing versus a thing that we could just facilitate that people already care about and want to be interactive with.
Yeah.
And that's all
when
it is.
When it comes to facts right now, there's no debate. Of course, you're 100% right. But the question that Evan posed was, is that going to be the case forever, right?
Hope not.
Right. I hope not too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it sounds like we're all on the same side for sure.
It's just, I understand in a very corporate, you know, numbers-driven environment, it was always difficult, always, even back when they were like supporting it with, you know, way more dollars, to draw the line between let's make, you know, put money in competitive Magic, which leads to us selling more Magic the Gathering booster packs. It's kind of difficult to draw that line. There's things you can infer, but there's things you can't guarantee, and there's things you don't have so many metrics about. So
here's my hot take. Are you ready for my hot take? I think Arena was real bad. I think Arena's kind of a mess of a program. I think in what it's done to Magic the Gathering's community and what it's done to their business model. I think it's a bit of a mess.
It's ruined Standard paper. I tell you that.
It's ruined Standard. It kind of ruined their business model.
Let's not give Arena all the credit for Standard. It's not a coincidence that COVID cycled out everybody's Standard deck and they have to start from scratch. It's one thing if you have to just keep up with a couple of cards every set, right? But now they've got nothing. There's no reason to do it.
I mean, Wizards, don't give us some event decks, man. Let's go.
But I also do very much agree.
The esports, the attempted esportsification of Magic effed us.
Was a giant mistake.
And they built Arena to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
That was part of
the
strategy.
So now we have this purpose-built program that no longer has a purpose. Much like Skrelv, the Defector Mite, was built for one purpose and no longer has one, and so it has to go do something else.
And on that note, we are going to turn the corner to
I see you, Skrelv. We're on the same page.
Magic has made some strange bedfellows, sometimes literally in the advertising space. From We Are Brain Dead to Stranger Things, and to most recently LoveSac, it just keeps on going. It was found this week that Magic has made another interesting corporate sponsor, Hot Pockets, featuring a notable Magic meatball Gideon on the box. So tell me, what future Hot Pockets flavor plus character pairing are you hoping they pair up next, Ruben?
Well, I love a good broccoli and cheese Hot Pocket, and of course, that would have to be Chandra, because much like every Hot Pocket that I've ever made, they're extremely cold on the outside, but filled with molten hot rage on the inside.
Nerd girl?
All right, well, I like a pepperoni pizza Hot Pocket, And that, of course, is the Veraska one because it's by far the most treasured flavor.
Oh, saw what you did there. Now look, the fillings are one thing, but I like the pretzel bread hot pockets, and I imagine they'd make those Jace themed because he too is one salty mother planeswalker. Saw what you did there, and that ends another live episode of Magic Mike's. Thanks for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. Thank you, Nerd Girl.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Ruben.
Hey, thank you. Good to see you. For everyone who's traveling this weekend, including Nerd Girl, be safe and have a good time in Philly.
Yeah, enjoy yourselves up there. It should be fun. As we move here to our final slide, I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, Mana Traders, my co-host, MTG Nerd Girl, and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching and listening. I hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmics. Please follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online on our Discord, twitch.tv at Magic Mics, on Twitter at Magic Mics Cast, our Magic Mics subreddit, and like the Magic Mics page on Facebook. Or join us here next week. And as in next week is in next Thursday. The normal time, the normal place for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.